Hey everyone, thanks for watching. I got a really exciting video for you today. We have Greg Dickerson on the line with us today, and as you can see, Greg's in his car. He pulled over so we can have a chat. I really appreciate that. How you doing today, Greg?
I'm doing great. How are you, Michael?
I'm doing wonderful. I really enjoyed the fact that you reached out, you saw what we were doing, and you're like, you know what, I'd like to get on the channel and share with everybody sort of your story. And that's really what real estate investors are. The more and more you do this, you realize that people are sharing it and willing to give back. And your story is particularly powerful. $200 million in total deals. You've been an entrepreneur and created 13 companies. So why don't you tell everybody what you're doing today and where your business is, and we'll start there.
Yeah, sounds good. So right now I build spec houses. I do commercial development, ground up, as well as buying buildings and renovating them, turning them into mixed use or flex space for industrial. And I flip houses, things of that nature. I don't do a whole lot of wholesaling. I do more retail wholesales, retailing or wholetailing, I guess
Yep.
you call it, things like that. So that's kind of how my business exists. And I do operate regionally. So I'm on the East Coast. I'm in Charlottesville, Virginia, and we just got 10 inches of snow Sunday. So it's a lot. Yeah, schools are closed, been closed last couple of days. And so I do deals down in North Carolina, on the Outer Banks of North Carolina, and in the Raleigh, Charlotte, Durham area, the Piedmont Triangle, they call it, all the way up to the DC area. So I'm about an hour from Washington, DC, hour and a half. I'm about an hour from Richmond, Virginia, which is the capital of Virginia, and then Hampton Roads, Virginia, which is where I'm from. And that's Virginia Beach, Norfolk, Portsmouth, Newport News. Largest naval base in the world is there in Norfolk Naval Base.
Wow.
Military area. So that's kind of where I'm from. And so I do deals all up and down that corridor. So I'm always on the road, out checking on projects, especially today with all the snow, looking
Yeah.
at some projects that are going on, making sure, everything's good and nothing's going wrong.
Mother Nature's hard when it throws 10 inches at you, I would guess.
Absolutely.
So when I hear you tell your story, a new investor might be intimidated, but when we sort of break back what you're doing, yes, the numbers are impressive and the size is impressive. But what I hear you saying is you're looking at opportunities and finding opportunities to add value, right? That's really what you're doing, whether it's a house or a mixed use building or flex space or any of that. You're finding an asset that you could take your particular knowledge, do something to it, and increase the value. Is that fair?
Yeah. So it's value add and opportunistic, which, sounds like the same thing, but they are two different strategies in the commercial real estate world. So value add is finding something that is somewhat stable, maybe, let's say a commercial strip center,
Yep.
and it's got a couple of vacancies and it's kind of just looking old. So you come in and you get those spaces leased up and you dress the building up, curb appeal, a little bit of paint, minor things, to increase the income on that property, which increases the value of the property.
Yeah.
So that'd be more of a value add. Opportunistic is more where it's a deeper level, where you might have to rehab an entire building, gut it, completely change the use or the purpose of the building, or develop ground up. So those are the two things that I really focus on, that I've kind of always focused on my entire career.
Okay.
And yeah, the numbers can sound intimidating to some, to others, it's chump change, but
Yeah.
I started in the business in 1997 as a builder. So
Yep.
that's how I started. I started as a little remodeling contractor. It was just me and my truck and my tools, doing everything myself. My first year I did 250,000. 7 years later, I had a $30 million building company. We were one of the largest builders in our area. And I was doing land development, spec houses, commercial, things like that. The other companies that I started along the way were kind of ancillary to what we were doing. So I had a plumbing company, electrical company, hurricane shutter company,
Ah,
pool spa, landscaping company. A lot of this was down on the Outer Banks of North Carolina, which is a summer resort rental area
yeah.
off the coast of North Carolina, big beach houses, that kind of thing. So, so it sounds like a lot, but it was a lifetime. It's been
Sure.
a lifetime. I'm 51 now. I moved to the Outer Banks in 1997 when I started that building company. And, I went in the Navy right out of high school, so I don't have a college education. I graduated high school, went in the Navy, did my 4 years, got out, and went to work. And, I'm just a hard worker. I learned it all from the ground up. I built it all from the ground up, and I did it through hard work and hard lessons. And I never had a mentor, so to speak, but I did partner with some people that were doing some investment deals and that were developers that kind of taught me how to do value add investment flips, that taught me how to do spec houses, commercial and land development. So I kind of learned it all by doing, along the
Yeah.
way, working with other people.
Yeah, I think that's what one of the things I hope people take from this is, you didn't start with some kind of head start, right? Your great grandfather wasn't the owner of the largest tract of land in North Carolina or whatever, right? You went to the Navy, did your 4 years, you came out and just worked, right? I love this.
Exactly.
I love that. I started with my truck and my toolbox. I think that might be the title of this video. I actually wrote that down. I think that's an awesome title. So I think a lot of the videos to date have been sort of value add focused. So I'm really keen to scratch the opportunistic angle of other kind of deals that you look for. Can you sort of run through? It doesn't have to be exact numbers, but run through a deal that you've done. I don't know, over the last couple of years. Sort of paint the vision of what you saw, right? The before state, kind of what happened during the whatever you want to call it, the ground up or remodel or gutting or whatever, and then how the exit looked like. Sort of walk us through one of your opportunistic deals, if you don't mind.
So one that, a lot of your people might understand, a lot of the viewers might understand on the residential side is from a creative, side.
Okay.
There was a piece of property that hit the MLS. It was a house that had two lots with it, and it was all being sold as one parcel of land, and it had a big price tag on it.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to the sellers, and I just made an offer, and I don't know. I mean, I think maybe it was 400,000. It was the house and two lots,
Yeah.
and I made them an offer at 250,000. And they came back to me, and my offer was based on, okay, I could buy the property, I could carve out the two lots, sell the house, and zero out my basis, and have the two lots for free, build two spec houses, and sell those. Right.
Yep.
So it was a long shot. I threw that offer in where it worked for me based on my numbers,
Yeah.
and the sellers came back and said, okay, we'll do the deal, but we are building a new house, so we need to be able to stay in our house while the new house is being built. And then, we'll move at the end, and you can take over this house. So I had to do a creative structure. So a lot of times, there's, when something comes on the market or comes available at a price that may look aggressive, sometimes there's other ways to make the deal work. So I agreed to it. So what we did was, and they needed some money for the down payment on their new house.
Okay.
So we went ahead and agreed on a purchase price of, I don't know, I think it was 250,000, something like that.
Yeah.
We gave them $50,000 to use as their down payment for the new construction house they were building.
Got it.
And we allowed them to stay in the existing home while that 90-day process was going along. We didn't charge them any rent, but they would not get the rest of their money until they vacated the house.
Okay.
And so 90 days later, everything was great. They left the house. We escrowed the 50,000, so they didn't even get that either until they moved out.
Right.
And then they got the rest of their money. And the builder was fine with that being an escrow.
Sure.
So they went ahead and started the house. Anyways, they moved out. We were able to begin construction on the houses next door while we were waiting for them to move out. So by the time they moved out, the two brand new houses were finished. They were on the market. And we renovated the existing house, sold that. So basically we ended up with two free lots. By the time the houses were done and sold, I think that whole deal made $250,000 in 6 months.
See, again, there's when I interview people that are experienced, you just drop nuggets like it's nothing. So a couple of things I wanted my subscribers to remember what he just said, right? So a property came on, big price tag, probably scared a lot of people looking at the MLS, because lots of people look at the MLS all the time, Realtor, Redfin, blah, blah, blah. They saw a number of 400 for a house and a bunch of dirt. They were immediately turned off because the house, let's just say, was worth 250 or 200. And they're like, I can't do anything with the dirt. No, a guy like you who's been in the trenches, done the work, realized that, you know what, 400 is just a number. I'm going to offer what makes sense to me, which meant, okay, what do I think I can sell the house for, getting the lots for free. And then, oh, by the way, you had the experience to go out and build two spec houses and sell those and do it on a timeline that makes sense. So I think there's just
Exactly.
so much in there to remember.
Well, and here's the key to that too. So at this time, 2011 time frame, I had sold my building company and had moved into the developer role. So I was hiring other builders to work for me. So I didn't build the house myself. Now, I've been a builder my whole career. I know how to build, but I hired another builder to build for me, and that's what I do now. So I work out of my house now, my home office. And I have general contractors that work for me in the different markets that I do deals.
Mm-hmm.
And I have realtors that I'll use. I'm a real estate broker as well. I've got my license in 2 states. But a lot of times I'll list my properties with a real estate broker, and I outsource everything. So I am the developer. I'm behind the scenes. My whole mission, my whole purpose in life is to find and create opportunities to add value to properties, to maximize, the highest and best use of a property, to uncover the gold in that property. So in this case, I looked a little deeper in the MLS notes, and it said 2 lots. and a lot of people look at that and just, wouldn't realize if they were buildable or what. So I
Yeah.
did the due diligence and found out that they were buildable. And we built 2 very small spec houses. They were, $135,000 each, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,500 square foot, just starter
Yeah.
entry-level homes. The value of the land for that is about 80 to 100,000.
Okay.
So we had that instant 80 to 100,000 for each
Yeah.
lot built in because of the way we did the deal. And hired a builder. He built them for us. We got them done. And I think what's really cool is when you say, okay, you made 250 grand on the deal. That sounds great, but what I look at more than anything else is time value of money. So it's not just what's that return on your cash over a year. It's what's the return on the cash for the entire time it was out for the project,
Yeah.
for the amount of capital out, because we didn't put up the entire $250,000 to build those 2 houses, or 270 all at once.
Yeah.
Right. We put 50,000 down on the entire project. And then we built the house and brought the capital through draws as we went along. So the first draw on the 2 houses might have been 50 grand. Then it was, another 50 and throughout the draw schedule. So as the capital went out, the other house came available. We sold that, capital came back in. So I think we did a calculation on it. We might have only had $100,000 out at risk at any given point in time, and we made 250,000 off of that over a 6-month period. So
yeah,
it's
so
really
that doesn't suck.
No,
that's not bad. That's funny. So again, you just keep dropping nuggets I want to make sure the subscribers pick up on. So you're an experienced builder, you're a licensed broker, you can do lots of different parts of this job, but you don't. Your job is to find and create deals. Right? Would you say that's
right?
Your core competency, and then you outsource everything else?
Absolutely. I'm a leader, delegator, motivator. So my job is to find professionals that are the best at what they do and coach them to success, help them be better, more efficient, and get the job done, not to micromanage every aspect of it and try to take on every aspect and squeeze every nickel out of every single part of the job I can do. I mean, you'll never in my career would you find me at Lowe's picking out lights or, things like that. You know what I mean? I hire professional designers. So when I was doing mega, beach houses and multifamily deals, I'll hire a designer and I let them pick everything out.
Yeah.
And all they do is run it by me. And I tell them, I say, look, I know your style. You know my style. You know what I like. I don't even care. Just go do it. That's that's what you're hired and paid to do. Right. So, I use professionals. I let them do their thing. I coach them to success. If you're in racing, you don't buy a thoroughbred and lock them in the stall.
Yeah.
Right. So, when you're hiring a professional to do a job and you're confident that they're good and they're capable, you let them do their thing.
Yeah.
And that gives me more time to go find more deals. The value that I bring to the table is finding the deals, creating the opportunity, and bringing the capital.
Yeah.
So that's what I focus on. And sure, I'm going to make 5 to 10% less than somebody if they did that whole deal themselves, but I can do 10 of them while they can do 1.
Exactly. That's what people need to pick up on, the ability to outsource. And frankly, what I had to do is my job like yours is I find and or create deals and I secure capital. That's all I'm responsible for. I outsource everything else, whether it was buy and hold for 15 years or now the stuff that I flipped. I just
right. And then you don't need that huge overhead. And I've had that in my career. I mean, I've had, 15, 20 people on staff, in my career with $1 million a year overhead. And I just don't need that now, and at my age, I can pick and choose and do less deals and get bigger tickets. But that's how I spent my career was managing, groups of people and doing a lot of things and in-housing a lot of things. And it was a whole separate company. So, I used my building company to build for me. So I was still kind of doing the same thing, but I was still responsible for that overhead at the end of the day. And, now I just don't even, I have no interest in taking that on anymore. I like to find projects and create opportunity for everybody to make money and leave enough meat on the bone for everybody to make money from all of the contractors, all of the tradespeople, all of the realtors, and the end buyer. So whether it's an investor that I'm flipping an entitled project to, or a developer, like a subdivision, or a end buyer, I want them to have equity. I want everybody to win.
Yes.
So that's really the key.
Yeah, it's good. It's like we're the same person on different sides of the coast. That's the key to this, right? Is everybody has to be a part of this, because there's 2 things that people don't kind of appreciate when you're talking about a deal. First off, this is a business, as you've shown, is long in duration, right? It's not like football or baseball where you have like a 3-year career and then you're done. This is a multi-decade career. The relationships you have, whether the buyer, salesman, tradesman, whatever, you want to keep those and use them long term. So
Exactly.
yeah, that's key. So just to wrap this section up, I love the overhead conversation, but I would be remiss if I didn't ask. So you talked about having $1 million overhead before, lots of teams, lots of companies. You have zero overhead today? You have a couple of full-time people, or what's overhead look like today for you, Greg?
Yeah, everything is outsourced. So everybody I use from accounting and bookkeeping and management, it's all outsourced. Because again,
Awesome.
I do bigger deals. So I
Yeah.
manage the general contractors. I've got realtors that list. So I've just recently, in the last 6 months, pared that down.
Okay.
I did have more of an overhead over the last 6 months, but I've really reached a point in my career where I'm looking to do less.
Yes. No, I
On a
get you.
day-to-day basis.
I feel you. Yeah.
I enjoy running the roads and looking at deals and coaching others and helping others. So that's what I focus on now. So yeah, everybody's outsourced, and
That's
everybody I use are independent contractors.
again, we are in sync. I have no overhead. I played with the idea of, hey, how big do you want to go and blah, blah, blah. And sometimes your ego gets in the way and I'm like, nope, I'm happy now. I'm going to do what I'm going to do. And the answer is if I have to add people, I'm not doing it.
Exactly. Yeah. There's plenty in this day and age, everybody's independent,
Yes.
you can find and outsource pretty much everything we do in real estate. So yeah, and there's a couple of schools of thought there. I mean, if you want to grow a company, build a company, that's great, but
Yeah.
I've done that.
Yeah. Been there,
And
done that.
exactly. Yeah. And I'm looking to slow down a little bit and
Yeah.
be conservative. And, the market's a little funny right now.
Oh yeah.
So,
It's turning over for sure. Yeah.
exactly. So I want to kind of sniff it out. Now, for me, it's really hard to balance because I love a challenge. I love building things. I love
Yeah.
building companies. So, I do get the bug every once in a while where I think, hey, it'd be great to build this, operation and do this, but
Yeah.
I live vicariously through others.
There you go. I
So,
couldn't agree more. Yeah. I spend, as this channel sort of highlights, I spend a lot of time helping people in their 20s and 30s either get started or take that next step, because like you said, I can live vicariously and get that little drip of reminder and then come back home and go, God, I'm glad I don't have to do that every day.
yeah, I'm the same way. I'll do it helping others and through the people that I'm doing deals with.
Yeah,
So, for you and me, our time is better spent finding opportunities,
absolutely.
bringing the value out of them, and coaching others to build their company doing our projects.
Good.
So
Yeah.
I'd rather do that, all day long.
I couldn't agree more. So look, I'd be remiss if we didn't rewind the clock. It's clearly very successful. I love everything you're doing. This first 10 or 15 minutes, people are just going to love. But let's remind everybody that you don't start where you are, right? Go
No.
back and remind everybody about the truck in the toolbox and sort of how you cut your teeth, and talk about some of the early deals and things you did there.
Yeah. So, I was working, after the military, before the military, and after the military, I was in construction and restaurants and, out there just working, making $8-10 an hour, just like anybody else. But I've always had this entrepreneurial spirit. As a young child, I raked yards, cut grass, did whatever I could do to make money.
Yep.
So I was just a natural entrepreneur. I worked a few jobs and learned construction. In fact, I was working in a restaurant, and there was a guy doing an addition on it. And he said, hey, I was, 16 at the time before the military. He said, hey, I'll pay you $20 if you come clean up after me. I said, okay. So I started doing that, and I'm a hard worker. So he liked me, and I started following him around and doing more and learning more. And eventually, started helping him do some construction. He was doing commercial construction. So I kind of learned, a lot of those aspects. Then I go in the military, did my 4 years. I get out, and the only thing I knew were restaurants and construction. So I went back to work doing those two things. I always had two jobs: construction during the day, restaurants at night.
Wow.
So in 1997, I decided to move to the Outer Banks of North Carolina, and I moved down there. I wanted to be in the restaurant business, and I was working in the restaurant industry at the time. Wanted to open my own restaurant, and I decided to get into construction instead. It was so busy, nobody could return a phone call or show up when they said they would to do anything. So I started talking to my friends, and they said, "Oh yeah, there's this huge opportunity," and I had some skills. So I quit my job and risked it all. Two young kids, had no money really to speak of. I had some credit cards, and I had a little bit of equity in my house, and used a line of credit on my house to
Wow.
get started. And I went out and I started doing little odd jobs. And I mean, the first job I did was some handyman kind of stuff for a friend of mine that owned a restaurant down there. And then I built a little deck for another guy, and started trimming some houses for other builders, and just, literally, like I said, I did 250,000 my first year in remodeling. My second year, I did 750. So the way that progressed, it was just me doing everything.
Yeah.
And then when I got busy enough, then I hired somebody to help me in the field.
Yeah.
And then so I was still doing everything, doing the books, bidding the jobs,
Oh,
getting the materials, on the job working.
wow.
And then I hired another guy. So then there was three of us. And then I said, okay, now I'm going to hire somebody to run the jobs, and I'm just going to be out doing the bidding, getting the materials, and overseeing and not working on the job, in the field.
Yeah.
And then next thing you know, I get a bookkeeper working for me part-time. So now we're at 750 a year, going
Yeah.
towards $1 million to our third year. And then it came to a point to where I started doing a bunch of guerrilla marketing, which, we're in the marketing business, right? So I did a
Yeah.
bunch of marketing, started bringing in a bunch of leads, and my bookkeeper went full-time, became an office manager. And then my job was 100% all day long on the road. I've had an office and all that, my whole career, but I'm never in it. I've
You
always
never
been on
did.
the
I
road.
can imagine. There's
Yeah.
dust on the seat.
Literally. So my job then was, and this was back in the days when we had the mobile installs in the truck and pagers, right? So
Oh,
we didn't
yeah.
even have smartphones. This is, 2000, 99, 2000.
Oh, man, we're
So,
old.
yeah. So my job was to go north to south. So the Outer Banks is very linear, and it's, I'd go up north and I'd make sales calls and I'd meet people and I'd give them estimates right there on the spot, handwritten. And
Yeah.
I'd go from north to south, and that was my job all day, every day, was to meet clients, look
Yeah.
at projects, and bring the work in. And at that point, I'd grown to 21 employees. I had 3 superintendents running, 5 or 6 crews out in the field. And that's all I did all day long was sales. The calls would come into the office. She'd page me and dispatch me to wherever I needed to go, and
Wow.
line up my appointments so that, I'd go from north to south,
Wow.
every day.
Woo.
So, we were doing that, and everything was great, and we were busy, and we were doing, a couple $1 million a year, and but we weren't making any money.
Yeah.
And I was like, what the heck is going on?
What's going on?
Yeah. So, hourly employees, right? So
Yeah.
all my labor was in-house. It was hourly employees. I had all these trucks on the road, and I'm paying, health insurance and
Yeah.
vacation and just all these things, and tools are disappearing and
Yeah.
materials are disappearing and people aren't working when they're supposed to. So I finally decided, all right, I'm going to start building houses. And I'd met
Okay.
somebody, a friend of mine who was a developer out of Northern Virginia, and he started showing me how to build spec houses and talking to me about doing development. He said, look, man, you got to do this. So we started building, little spec houses down on the Outer Banks, and I took all of my guys and turned them into subcontractors. So now they were independent contractors. And that was
I
my
like
first
it.
step towards outsourcing.
Yeah.
And I started hiring all subcontractors. As soon as I made that switch from in-house to subcontractors, I started making money. And my whole game changed. So then we went to 7.5 million, then we did 12 million. And then I think our 7th year in, we hit that 27-30 million dollar range, and I sold everything. 2004, 2005, right at the peak of the market.
Oh,
Sold the
good for
first.
you. Damn, that's good timing.
Oh yeah. Sold my first building company and a lot of the properties I had and projects. And then I just, stepped into more of the developer role from kind of that point on.
Yeah.
And then 2009, we all got put out of business.
Yeah.
And I had to reinvent and start over. So along the way, I started building big beach houses, $1 million plus beach houses. I built
Okay.
3 of the largest houses ever built down in Nags Head, North Carolina.
Wow.
And, post 2009, you had to kind of reinvent yourself, right? So I was doing spec houses and rental houses and all that. The financing dried up, the opportunities dried up, and nobody was buying those things.
Yeah.
So I started building the little beach houses, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,500 square foot starter homes. And these things were costing 125, 130,000, which is what the kitchens would cost in the bigger houses I was building pre-2009, right?
Oh, that's funny.
So I switched to that model and started building those, and they were affordable, and there was a market for it. And I was doing 10 to 12 of those a year, totally outsourced, hiring another builder to work for me. I was a realtor, so I'd just list them myself. And, it was easy. We were doing 10, 12 of those a year, 15 of them a year. And, just kind of rolled on through that for a while until the land inventory kind of dried up for a little while. And, now, I don't know, I've got about 3 of them going right now. And so I've continued to do those over the years and totally outsourced, got somebody else building them for me. And so, that's just one of the little things that I do. And that's kind of how my career progressed. So it sounds easy. It sounds overnight, but man, I was working, 60, 80 hours a week, a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of effort, thinking the way to do it is to have it all in-house, control everything.
Yeah.
I was trying to buy lumber wholesale and just all these different things as I went along, right? And just,
Yeah.
really learned it all the hard way. And at the end of the day, found out if I would have done business back then the way I do now, man, we'd be talking about over $1 billion, not 200 million.
Yeah, yeah. That's again, there's so many things in that story, right? You don't have to do it all yourself. You don't have to, for me, right, I'll put it in my words. You don't have to have your ego drive, building a bigger company and being this big thing, right? At least for me, my ego sometimes makes me make stupid decisions. And
Yeah,
that experience that you went through and you shared, I hope people are picking up on, right? It's know what you're good at. You don't have to do this. You can outsource, make people 1099, make sure there's enough for everybody to eat, and you just bought time to do more, right? That's kind of the
exactly.
lesson learned.
And live life on your own terms.
Hey,
So
yeah, good point.
everybody else has to deal with,
Yeah.
especially now with cost increases and, labor shortages. It's very difficult, time and development and construction right now. It's very difficult.
Good
And I've
point.
been to a couple of little real estate seminars and masterminds lately, and which I do some speaking engagements here and there, and talking to other investors, and everybody's having a hard time with contractors,
Yeah.
and they're just spread so thin. So let that be somebody else's problem. And then if you want to do bigger deals, it's so much easier because you don't have to learn it on your own.
Yeah.
You find a contractor and developers and partners that are already doing big deals, and you learn through them, with them, doing deals with them, versus trying to go out there and just do it all on your own and spend all
Yeah.
that time, energy, and effort. And at the end of the day, potential losses financially,
Oh, yeah.
significant losses, bigger deals.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
I know there's a mentality out there of syndication, things like that, where people say, oh, just go tie up a property and then go raise money and syndicate the deal and everything's going to be great. And I mean, there's a lot more to it than that. It's not that
Yeah.
simple. If it was, a lot more people would be doing it. So the
Yeah.
best thing to do is find somebody that's already doing the kind of deals, the kind of business you want to do, and go partner with them, and bring something to the table,
Yeah.
whether it's the legwork or the capital or, whatever it is you can bring to the table. And man, you'll just fastball your way through it.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, one of the things you sort of hit on there that I'm a big believer in is when markets roll over, the gurus come out of the network. So now the gurus are talking about syndication or value add apartment buildings. There's a whole bunch of talk about wholesaling, virtual wholesaling now, which I think is a crime. All of these different areas. But for me, that's a red flag, right? Because it's if it was that easy to your point, everybody would be doing it, and people are losing what the real value is. The real value isn't in getting 10 friends and or whatever to throw in some money. It's about understanding the value, putting the deal together, the structure. So your advice about going and partnering with someone or working with someone who's done that, been there, done that, is the right way to do it versus buying some course or something, in my opinion.
Yeah. And that's one of the ways I built my construction company so fast. When I decided to build new construction houses, I'd never built one, right? I'd
Yeah.
never built a house from the ground up. So I went and hired experienced people in my local market that were working for some of the biggest companies already,
Yeah.
building some of the biggest houses. I had no idea how to build $1 million beach house. So I went to my largest competitor and I hired his best people
There you
and,
go.
and brought them to work for me. So we had an instant company, just add capital, right?
Right.
And customers. And what I knew how to do was market, and I knew how to generate leads. So I took the professionals that already knew what they were doing, and I coached them to success. But more importantly, I allowed them the opportunity to do their job.
Yeah.
So when you have somebody, whether it's an employee or a contractor, if you're paying a professional, to do their job, I mean, the last thing you're going to want to do is come in, number one, and do it for them or tell them how to do it.
Oh,
You should
amen.
be hiring people much smarter and much better than you, and partnering with people much smarter and much better. I mean, if you walk in a room of your employees or your partners and you're the smartest guy in the room, you're in the wrong room.
Oh,
you know?
amen to that. Amen to that. So that's been great. So, I know you're busy and on the road. Why don't we skip forward and you have any vision of what you see yourself doing in 3 to 5 years? Are you just going to kind of stay status quo? You're going to go live in the Caribbeans for a year? What do the next 3 to 5 years hold for Greg?
Well, I'm going to continue to do, larger deals. I like the value add stuff. I like the development opportunities. I'm very cautious with the retail office landscape right now. Multifamily is tricky, but with interest rates rising, there's going to be some opportunities. But I like to do fewer, bigger deals. My whole business philosophy is to make the most amount of money in the least amount of time, energy, and effort possible. And with the
Wow.
way I'm
Say
structured
that again.
now,
That's awesome. One more time. That's got to be repeated. Your philosophy is? Oops.
did you get
I did not get it. One more time.
And did I get you back?
Yep, there you are.
Yeah, we had a little dead spell there for a second.
That's okay. I'll tell people in the notes. I'm not stopping this. This has been too much fun. So if you don't mind, I won't interrupt again. Tell me about your business philosophy again. I think it's awesome.
Yeah, to make the most amount of money in the least amount of time with the least amount of energy and effort possible.
Love that. So where are you
Yep.
taking this thing?
And the way we're structured, we can work, until we're 90, right?
Yeah.
Because, we're not out there beating the streets and getting it done. I mean, we're leveraging the assets and talents of others. That's where the greatest rewards are, is when you find champions, coach them to success, leverage the assets of others, and build off of that.
Yeah, totally agree. Totally agree. So I want to turn over this last portion of this video to you, or this interview to you. Just share whatever you'd like. Ask for help, or whatever you need, private money, or whatever you need, and any advice you have for the channel. So this is yours, and I'll be quiet.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, we are out doing deals. So we're always looking for capital to go into the deals. We do the bigger deals, and it's all secured investments. We don't do a lot of syndication. We typically do we place investors in one deal so that it's easy and it's clean, things like that. So I'm always looking for joint venture opportunities and capital investors that want to get into some of these projects. I'm always looking for operators in markets, to do deals with. So if somebody has a project or an opportunity and they're not quite sure what to do with it, I'll come alongside them and kind of help them work through it. So I'm always available to anybody. My website's gregdickerson.com. All my contact info is on there, and feel free to reach out to me anytime. And I do a lot of that. I have people all over the country that either have land or have a building or have an opportunity, and they don't know what to do with it or how to do it. So I'll come alongside them and work with them and kind of help them, figure out the highest and best use and put that deal together, find capital, find developers, and find contractors to get the project done. So those are the types of things that I have going on now, and I really enjoy it. I like looking at deals and opportunities, and I've got a network all over the country. It's a lot of fun, to be able to do that.
Yeah, you've set it up right. And again, we're very similar on the private money side. I will never do a deal where I have to put in multiple investors in one transaction. It's just too hard. I don't want even the perception of playing favorites. So one deal, one investor, and if I need more capital, it's my capital. I'll never
Yeah.
mix. I'll never mix investors. I syndication and the whole. Let's have 10 or 100 or 1,000 people in on one property. Just too scary. At least it scares me. I'm sure it's great, but I don't have to, so I'm never going to do one of those.
Yeah. Well, I look at everything from the standpoint of not what can go wrong, but how can I be wrong about this? What's going to happen? What's going to take us out? And when you've got, a number of people mixed into something, I mean, basically the day you sign on the dotted line, if you're borrowing money, so most syndicators are raising equity and they
Yeah.
still have to get debt.
Yeah.
The day you close on that loan, you're in default. A lot of people don't realize the bank can call your loan anytime they want. And if we get another economic situation and interest rates go up, the bank can all of a sudden say, you know what, we're not making enough money on this. Let's call this loan. And they'll find a reason to call it.
Oh yeah.
Syndication is one of them. Banks don't like multiple equity investors on title with properties. That puts you in default. A lot of people don't realize that. So
Yeah.
you got to be careful. It does work. I'm not saying it doesn't work. What I'm saying is, from a risk standpoint, you got to be careful. So if one of those things goes wrong and you've got 10, 15, 20 people you put into a deal, that's a whole lot of people to have to answer to when things go wrong. If you've got one person, the right person, and patient capital, and I'm going to use that term, patient capital, that's where you have capital that doesn't need their money back anytime soon.
Yep.
They can stick it out, thick or thin, good or bad. They understand the risk. And that's the way to do it. So that's the way I like to do it. I like to have, the capital set aside for different projects and just have one person. That's what we're doing. And, try to eliminate any kind of personal guarantees on debt as much
Oh
as you
yeah,
can. The last thing you want to do is
for sure.
put equity and guarantee debt. One of the other, I try not to put any equity or debt if I can help it, because I do have people that like to invest.
Yeah.
But if you have to, you don't want to do both. That's where you can get taken out.
Totally agree. Well, Greg, I want to thank you for pulling over and doing this conversation. I had a lot of fun. I learned a lot, so I know the subscribers are. I just want to thank you for being willing to talk to us today. It's been a lot of fun
Yeah,
for me.
absolutely. I appreciate you having me. I enjoyed it, and we'll have to do it again sometime.
I look forward to that.